Welcome to Life, Love, and Good Stuff. Father and daughter chats with David and Sophie McCallum. Here we discuss seeing and living life through the lens of self-love, how family relationships and life experiences hinder or fuel an authentic, rewarding life. A life filled with conscious, compassionate self-love. And sometimes we just have a good chat. Actor David McCallum has appeared in theater, film, and television and is a critically acclaimed author. David's most enduring roles include the Russian agent Ilya Kuryakin in The Man from U.N.C.L.E. and Dr. Donald Ducky Mallard on the CBS hit NCIS. Sophie McCallum was born in New York City where she lives today. Sophie's a certified life coach but specializes in self-love coaching as the self-love peddler. Sophie is an energy leadership master practitioner and strives to start each day with love in her heart for herself and the world around her.
Be here. This should only take a few hours, like 6 or... Hi, Dad.
Hello.
Is the light on?
It's very bright.
This light? I turned it way down.
I know, but, you know...
Do you want to turn that one off?
No, I want to turn that one down a little more.
No, because...
You just got to get some craggy looks.
Some cranky looks?
No,
What is that, a
that's
snack?
good. High right fill is good.
We're going to do it. We're not going to change it. It's fine.
No, why would you change it?
Because you just complained about it.
No, I just think it's a little high key.
I turned it way down.
I take it down and stop, but that's me. I'm old-fashioned.
How's that?
Keep going. Still there. Now you
There, is that the sweet spot?
Well, look at the wallpaper and look at the shadows on me. The shadows are good.
Mm.
It is the shadow.
So, Dad, today we're going to talk about love.
Mm-hmm.
And I love you.
Wow.
When someone says I love you.
What light through yonder window breaks.
I love you too. I love you.
Oh, that's nice to know.
You're supposed to say I love you too.
Well, if you don't know
I didn't
that
think
now,
I
you
needed
never
notes for that part. So one thing I do, I don't know if I've told you, but I'm designing these courses online, and I'm hoping that people buy them and their lives become measurably better through things that have made.
4, 3, 2, 1, mark it. You're on camera.
Okay, well, we already started, but that's okay. So one of the things that I ask people to do in my first course is to wake themselves up as if they were waking up their 5-year-old self, and to think about the language they would use and what they would say to that person, that child. In my case, it's that girl, because my courses
Well, of course, if I spoke like that, you wouldn't understand me.
Do it.
5 years old in Glasgow, are you kidding?
Well, do it.
No, I mean, when I do it, people make fun of me.
Laughing is good.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, what people say they would do is be kind and loving and patient and say things that would encourage that small child to get up and live a beautiful day.
Whereas I would feel frustrated and puzzled and inadequate because I would be surrounded by all these big people, because I'm only that big, you know. Plus the fact that there's a world out there and I'm supposed to go out and deal with it. And as a child, it's pretty devastating to face the world when you're really little. And it's particularly, you know, in many cases where you have people that don't really know how to bring children up. And it gets abusive and everything else. So I'd be a little cautious about waking up a 5-year-old.
Your 5-year-old self? Not any 5-year-old.
No,
but
no,
you were
friend,
clearly woken up with love and kindness.
Absolutely,
and with
yes,
parents.
Yes.
I mean,
and
if people
violin
were...
and cello and piano.
Yeah. So there were tools and controls and procedures put in place that helped you wake up and feel safe, even though you're now aware of how unsafe it can feel to be a child. And what I'm interested in, the act of what people did for you to bring love and levity and peace into your life so that you could go and live this incredible life that you've lived.
Yeah, but in my case, there's no way I can remember, 75 years ago, and I wasn't conscious. I mean, I don't think you have a true conscious mind until about 8 years old.
83 years ago. You were 5, sorry, Dad.
Whatever it was. Oh, yeah, I'm not 90 yet. But I think one of the things which I am luckier than most people is that Father at that time, my father was the concertmaster, the leader of the Scottish Orchestra, and playing in concert halls and Mozart, Brahms, Beethoven, and all of those wonderful. My musical education was staggering, and it came right back into the bedroom. I mean, he played his violin to me at night to put me to sleep. I mean, in Brahms' Lullaby, I've probably heard more than any other piece of music in my life. My mother was a cellist. They worked together. There were people who would come over. We had a Collard and Collard upright piano, which had a beautiful tone. And people would come over and play the piano, but not just anybody. I mean, concert pianists. And so Father would stand, in the next room with the piano, and I'd hear this incredible music as a child, which went on throughout my life. I mean, I sat with many of the great conductors in the pit of theaters when they were doing plays or musical operas. Mm-hmm. And just that musical background and that whole aesthetic, which is so important and something which is being lost.
What whole aesthetic?
The aesthetic of music, of language, of painting, of an education where there is so much to learn, that your parents expose you to so much.
But why do you think that's being lost? I mean, it's different music, but I expose my children to music.
It's a totally different world. You're absolutely right. They're exposed to a tremendous amount. But there is an aesthetic which I missed because I didn't go through the Victorian era, nor did I go up during the time of Mozart, with the court in Germany. I mean, the clothes, that aesthetic, which is even more aesthetic than what I went through. But one of the things I think that I see getting lost everywhere, and doesn't really relate to being woken up as a 5-year-old, but is the word respect. We don't teach people to respect everything. I have if there's a fly crawling across the page, I have a terrible problem in doing that. I can't do it. I'll say, go home. So you have to have a respect for the people that build motor cars, the machine make, 50 people in a row all making the same thing. For you, all the guys that make, having a glass of wine, I'm aware of the people that planted the grapes and picked them and squeezed them in and made the wine, and whatever number of times they can do in their lifetime, which is very few for a vintner. But you just to be aware of having a respect for everything.
Well, in this day and age where things are so easy it's literally one-stop shopping for almost anything you need with Amazon for most people.
And it's a disposable society.
It's a disposable society. How do you think that permeates the psyche of the individual and how we value and how does that affect our self-worth?
Well, you can't generalize because it's different in everybody. Everybody's different. And some people will have more respect than others.
Well, you've generalized. You said that we're losing aesthetic across the board.
Yeah, and I'm talking about, I suppose I'm talking about the silicon chip and everything that goes with it, the screens. I'm with the grandchildren for an entire evening, and I never talk to them at all. They're either running around having a good time as children, which is fabulous, or they're buried in a screen, or that's the way it is now. I mean, I'm not criticizing that in any way, because that's the world they're going to grow up in. That's the world that we have to get used to as parents and as grandparents, or whatever we would call, whatever. But I mean, it's all changing, and it's changing in a direction which the 5-year-old who got woken up, who decided he had to deal with the world and everything, when he finally got around to dealing with it and coming to grips with all of the things that you have to deal with growing up. And, I got divorced and I lost a child, and, there's an I was a bit of a mess when I married your mother, and she straightened me out, probably more than anybody. And you guys have straightened me out to a certain extent.
Well, you're straightened out.
I'm getting there.
And I believe that a lot of it comes from the fact that I can say for certain that you and Mom love your children and treat us with care and respect so that we could care and respect ourselves. Mm-hmm. And I believe that all 4 of your parents loved instinctually and deeply for their children, so that those 5-year-old children could all wake up and feel safe and ready. And sometimes we lose that. My journey in life, I lost a little bit of awareness, respect, self-love, self-worth, and had to build it back up. But that foundation was there so that when I was able to tap into those feelings and those actions, it was muscle memory.
I mean, what you're doing is tremendous, because it is so multifaceted. And it's like when people say, I'm going to have dinner. Now that means that you're going to go home, you're going to go on the way, you're going to go shopping, you're going to buy this, you're going to cut these vegetables, you're going to do this, that, the next thing you're going to cook everything, you're going to sit down, and then you're going to eat. That's when you're having dinner. But what's gone into that moment is a tremendous amount of labor and all sorts of different things, and places you've been and people you've contacted with and people who have very often helped you. It's exactly the same with life. I mean, and particularly when you talk about love, it's all very well, as we do, we hang up on the phone and say, I love you. It's become a kind of cliche, which is beautiful. But at the same time, what it means to love someone, it's not a word. It's like the man at the benefit we went to the other day when he said, it's not about saying it, it's doing it. Mm-hmm. And loving means cooking for your mother. Calling Peter last night after a somewhat disastrous evening and talking to him while he was driving back to Connecticut. It means doing things. It can be so simple. I mean, if somebody writes you a little note, you can ignore it and say, well, I'll see him in a week or whatever. Or you can pick up the phone and say, hey, got your note, thanks very much, I'm going to bed now, goodbye. It doesn't take much to do little things. It is the combination and the whole coming together of all of that which means I love you. That's what it's about. I mean, the best bit is, I always love it in my book when he, poets have written about it, but some people have never experienced truly loving somebody. That to me is the worst thing that can happen to anybody. But to actually have that initial, when you meet somebody and 2 eyes meet 6 feet apart, and boom, that's it. That's a very lucky thing to have happen to you, especially if it works out. Doesn't always, but that's one love that is separate from all the rest. That's the one that plays are written about.
Mm-hmm. And how do you do that for yourself? You cook dinner for Mommy. What kind of things do you do for you?
I have a rule that the first person I have to take care of in this world is me. Because without my stability and having a certain equilibrium in my life, and that's the first thing, I have to maintain that. If I can maintain that, then I can deal and help and love and do all the other things with other people. But self is the most important thing. And it's not selfishness. It's nothing to do with that at all.
Opposite.
It's getting yourself in a condition that you can deal with the world. The second thing, I'm still trying to think.
But how do you do that?
How do I? Oh yes, I know the second thing. The thing that follows right after that is the absolute total avoidance of stress. And you avoid stress by realizing that it doesn't exist in your life. The only thing that exists in your life are problems to be solved.
Opportunities.
And there is no problem at all, anywhere, that you as an individual in your world can't solve. I mean, if you go off into nuclear physics, you probably don't know how to redesign the atom bomb. But even that is within your power because somebody's doing it, and if they can do it, you can do it. There's nothing that can't be accomplished. And sometimes you get people that don't recognize that's what I'm doing when I'm the way I am. I mean, and that's a little tricky because then...
Explain that further.
Well, there are people out there in the world that, you say, let's be silly. I mean, I need to take a nap and I'm going to leave for an hour and a nap and I'll be back in an hour. And they're saying, wait a minute, we have to do this, 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 and this. Now, if I do this, this, and this, and this, I'm going to be so tired at the end of it, and the last two aren't going to be done right, and I'm tired. I want to take a nap. It's the self in me that will win out because I'll take that nap. I find the people who give in there's a degree of frustration, you're a little tired, things don't quite work. I mean, take care of yourself. Mm-hmm. It's so, and you don't have to announce that you're going to take a nap. You can just go take a nap and say, I'll see you in half an hour, I mean, whatever.
I've noticed with self-care, originally for myself and with some of the people with whom I've worked, that sometimes in order to take care of yourself, you do have to ruffle a few feathers. People aren't going to understand what you're doing. Your self-care can be treated, like the other man, or when you stop and you say, no, I can't do XYZ that you expect me to do right now for exactly the reasons you just said. Because if you don't, you will run out of steam. It's the oxygen mask theory. If you don't get that oxygen mask on yourself first, everybody's going down.
There's a third element. I was in a doctor's office in California, that dreadful place, in Westwood. And there was a sign on the wall, and it was a list of things, I think like a dozen things. And it was all of the things which the body is trying to do to make itself better. And then there was the obverse, the other side, 12 going the other way, which are the 12 things that people do to make themselves sick, basically, or unwell. And if you can get those rules, because they are rules if you want to deal with the world, you have to follow it. And I've followed some of them in my life. I'm trying, as I get older, I'm being forced to do them more carefully now because, time's running out. But diet is very important, and it's quantity more than anything else. Don't overeat. Just eat enough, to keep you going.
That's hard for so many people.
And the other thing is, you can eat. It's so important not to eat because you're on a diet. Eat for pleasure first,
and eat real food.
Well,
I mean, don't eat something that's going to sit on a shelf with 8 gazillion ingredients that you can't understand. I mean, I've found if I break it down, this morning we had a beautiful birthday breakfast for my 47th birthday, and I ate more sugar than I've eaten in the last 6 months. and it was fun, and it was
That's
great.
one day.
It was one day. But in general, I don't... Quantity is very hard for me to control because I love to eat a lot of food.
You're married to someone that's massively dealing with that, because he eats the table if he could.
But that's the thing, is if I eat a lot of really wonderfully healthy food, all my kids are home right now, so I'll chop up 3 papayas and squeeze lime juice on them and leave it out on the table, and I'll go take a shower and I'll come back and it's gone. And they've just grazed their way through it. And if it's accessible and easy, there's nothing better.
But this morning I got up early enough to squeeze.
Thank you.
Had to be 50
It was so
mandarins and the juice for everybody.
Oh, it was so delicious.
And that is an extraordinary thing. But if you wanted to put it on a vanilla ice cream, you could, but just one scoop,
Yeah. Well, vanilla ice cream doesn't have a gazillion ingredients. I mean...
No, but you can take a Breyers ice cream and eat the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
Not a good idea.
No.
But that element of taking care of yourself, staying away from anxiety, and following the rules that the body wants you to follow in order to keep itself healthy. Because this is a machine. I mean, I played someone in autopsy on television for the last 20 years, and I've seen the real thing, because that's how I learn to do what I do on television. I go watch the real thing, or actually have been with the pathologist while he's done. And I've seen a lot of dead people, and I've seen a lot of incredibly, shall we say, overweight people. Lots of different ways that people die, and it's accident very often, or they've been severely depressed and committed suicide as opposed to dying naturally. And other people who, just, die natural deaths. And then, of course, there's all the violence of society, particularly in the morgue, as they call it, dreadful word, where the people are taken and put when they die. That is an experience that, and what I take away from it more than anything, is what an absolute miracle the human body is. If you look at the way it's all put together, having taken it apart, but you see how it's put together and how one thing works with another, and how that filtration system works with all the waste product, and how food is digested, and how your nervous system works, and how one muscle in one part of your body, you can end up with muscles all over the place aching, and the awareness that the human body is an incredible machine is something that's the thing I've learned more than anything.
And I like what you said about anxiety, which is one of the biggest threats to the human body.
It doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist. And you have to recognize that your body, your blood starts to pump, and you start to get nervous, and that those anxious reactions, they start to make you aware that something that makes you uncomfortable is coming, and it's trying to prepare you to deal with it. But when it overruns, that's when anxiety takes over. So what I find when I'm feeling, butterflies that are turning into pterodactyls in my stomach, I stop and I thank my body for that, consciously, for that reaction. Thank you for letting me know that this is something that scares me, but I'm going to choose to find the opportunity. Like, I will literally stop myself and say those words out loud. Like, thank you. I understand why you're there, and I appreciate you.
Oh, I talked to David.
Right.
I said,
well,
hey,
sure.
David, hey, don't go there.
Don't go there.
Relax,
it's not going to help.
It's,
Exactly.
Joanna Lumley said something to me once, a lovely actress who's a good friend. I worked with her years ago. But Jo said, that when she finished college, anxiety of the final year in college with all the exams, And she remembered in the finals when and she's brilliant, she's so smart, but she said she finished that for last exam and she thought, thank God, no more pressure and anxiety.
Never doing that again.
And then never doing that again. And then she said about a year later, she opened in the West End in a play on opening night. She said, oh, please, I wish I was doing a final exam. Yes. You learn on stage, particularly under those kind of pressures, that you have to find a way of relaxing and getting rid of the stress, because it's piled on top of you. And then nowadays, of course, with millions and millions of dollars riding on an opening night on Broadway, and you catch a cold the day before, I mean, but you worry about catching the cold. That's the stupid thing.
Well, that's how you catch the cold.
No, I've so far managed not to go through that. Yeah. But that's attention. One thing I did discover physically, which is interesting, in rehearsals I found that if I can have the tips of my fingers relaxed when I'm on stage, my whole body's relaxed.
That's interesting, because the connection from here to there has to travel through. That's amazing.
That, you get tense and you're here. I also use it driving cars, because any long journey where you're driving, you're holding the steering wheel like it's going to fall off. The car's driving itself practically. Although I will never get in a self-drive car.
You could probably do that to your toes too. Fingers and toes.
I'm not in direct communication with my toes, but my fingers, yes.
Well, on that note, thank you, Dad. We'll get in direct communication with your toes the next one we do.
They're looking forward to it.
Yeah, so are mine. Until then, I love you.
Thank you for spending time with us today. Please hit the subscribe button so you're notified each time a Life, Love, and Good Stuff Father and Daughter Chats with David and Sophie McCallum podcast drops. Until next time, remember to lead with love.